Now we'll be starting panel discussion. To join our panel discussion, we have two more esteemed guests. The first one is Mr. Sashi Zunkara. He has his graduation from IIT Madras and he topped it up with IMEA. And he has also worked with one of the world's best consulting companies, McKinsey & Scope, for 20 years. And is currently working with Cypher Oncology right now. And next we also have Mr. Ratnakar. He's an alumnus from IIM Bangalore, and he has 20 years of work experience in various fields linked to startup, talking about investment strategy and corporate finance, fundraising, risk assessment, audit, and taxation. And he has been an independent director at Hyderabad Angels, and he has been as an incubator at various cities, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Kerala, in the entire startup ecosystem. And as an investment director, he has invested in 24 plus startups in the last 2.5 years, and he has already got 7 plus exits. And he worked with Spencer Retail as a part of RPC Group, and he has worked with ICICI Bank, and is also part of the General Council of Image and STP Hyderabad. So now let me welcome Ratnakar and Sashi onto the dais. Please give them a round of applause. And we also welcome our earlier speakers, Sunkari ma'am and Sundari ma'am, and Nayan.
Just to clarify, the founder of Cypher
Oh.
He's the founder.
One is from the promoter perspective, another one from the investor perspective. So the first question is, as a startup, there are multiple challenges, and specifically talking about the DPIIT registration, what are the normal challenges which startups face, and what is the process for such approval, or is there any specific method to get it faster? This is about DPIIT registration.
Yes. So this, I think, was actually a very easy process. The Startup India policy, or getting registered under the Startup India portal to get the benefits under the Startup India policy, which is tax exemption for 3 years on profits. Of course, most startups don't have profits in the first 3 years. So that benefit isn't much. But the more important benefit is that any capital raising we do into the premium account, share premium account, is not taxable. And that protection really means something for us. We don't want to part with a lot of the investment that we raised in the form of tax. And that particular registration allows us to retain that premium account without any taxation. And the registration was quite straightforward. I think they have a portal and a website for that registration. And within 3 weeks, we got the certificate from DPIIT on that particular thing.
So what's the approval rate?
I actually have no idea. We'll have to probably look at it from that side. I'm glad we got registration.
All right. Next, we can divide the startup ecosystem into pre-COVID era and post-COVID era. So after COVID, there has been a flurry of investments coming into this. So is the government reacting in the same pace in terms of the approvals, in terms of the support? Because investors said there has been a lot of interest. So what's your thought? What is your thought about it?
See, yesterday in THEV, this is an interesting conversation. See, the government has lesser role in startups. It is again a commercial transaction. That's what the question came back, what government need to do. The government has brought, they said, what is a startup, how it need to be recognized. They said, okay, I'll create a website, I'll realize as a DPIIT. Because as in Nayan's one of his presentation, all the states have framed a policy for startups. They got certain subsidies, certain grants, certain things are there to avail that, because I am also part of Telangana Performance Incentive Grant Committee member. One of the key criteria is that startups should be recognized by DPIIT and it should have a number. And it is from Telangana to take their benefits. So that is how the DP, otherwise I don't know who is startup, who is not startup, right? That's it. Second thing is people felt government should be on light mode. They shouldn't get too much into startup ecosystem to understand. They are only to use the social awareness and provide whatever required help is there. And Telangana government and Kerala government has done extremely two good jobs. Kerala has set up Kerala startup ecosystem, and Telangana government has TUP. I think KTR has taken TUP to world now. Everywhere he is speaking to bring that awareness among the people in this particular state. Correct. From investment point, the whatever hurdles are there, they are trying to remove. But other side from the tax angle, because we were discussing, they wanted to control the source because Modi agenda is to remove black money in India. He wanted to control the source. That's the reason he brought all these conditions. But he said, my conditions shouldn't hurdle startups. That's why he got 56(2)(a) and other benefits to get in there. What we were looking at.
We looked into the various phases of funding, which has been explained in the slide. Do you have any specific numbers, like at what stage, what is the right source? Are there any specific metrics in terms of fundraising?
So, fundraising is a different phenomenon. Around 10 years back, somebody used to come with an idea. People used to fund. Or today, no. People have been matured. Please understand the maturity levels have gone up. Just to give you the statistics, between 2011 to 2020, there are 80,000 startups has been registered under DPIIT, out of which only 35,000 startups have been survived. You can see less than 50% today. Out of 35,000 startups, only 6,000 startups got formal funding as per the returns filed with ROC. Because that's where you will see share capital coming into being. Correct? So, in that, there is Series A, Series B, Series C. Series C is the ultimatum. That is the hurdle rate you need to cross to see yourself into the next league. There are only 300 companies. In that, there are 72 or 77 companies today in the unicorn club. So that is the rate. People see startup is easier to get in and get into unicorn. It is not that easy. It has its own metrics of doing it. And today to do the initial funding exercise, because startup has been well recognized, media has been well portrayed, and awareness has really grown. And the Chartered Accountant Association is speaking about startup itself. It shows what it means about a startup ecosystem today. The minimal requirement for friends and families stood at 1 to 2 crores today. It was not 10 lakhs or a 1 lakh which we were seeing. And angel investors have been pushed to raise $1 million today. $1 million. We are struggling. Most of them are our co-investors. I think Sundari madam, and she has been more journey with HA than me. She is seeing from day one. The sizes have went up. And previously Series A used to be called as 3 to 5 million. Now it is called pre-Series A. And now Series A is $10 million. People are raising $10 million easily. And the word rupees has gone. In startup ecosystem, no rupees. It is only in dollars. Valuations in dollars. Papers are also quoting in dollars. Please understand. So this is where we are standing. If you are asking what kind of funding is this, this is the only reason. The only reason is there are two stages in startup cycle which I see for a decade. One is pre-Geo and post-Geo. Geo has changed India in internet. And today you see Zomato, Ola, Uber, Paytm, all they have grown because of internet has been the base between a consumer and company, startup company. And their numbers have really grown. That's why digital marketing has really picked up very well. You got it understood? And you just look into startup ecosystem, IT spendings. They are much larger than the companies which are spending here in Hyderabad. So even I think Zomato is spending $400 million on IT itself. And most of the money is surprisingly going to AWS because they are giving the cloud service actually. So that's one phase that really changed Indian ecosystem, and there are the startups which are getting listed today, Policy Bazaar or Nykaa, whatever you are seeing. There's been a big change because of the internet as a word. Now the second issue is pre-COVID and post-COVID. Your question is there. Pre-COVID it is physical world. Post-COVID it is called physical world. physically present and digitally doing the transactions. Even madam need to do digital, I need to do digital, but physically we need to be present to people to come. So it has changed the world how we look at today. Unless you have any views.
I think I'd like to echo a couple of points you mentioned. I think in the last 10 years, if that was the decade of startup as an ecosystem developing in the country, there has been a complete change in the sophistication of the companies that are taking birth, as well as the readiness they show for induction of funds from third parties. I think 10 years ago, as Ratnakar was saying, I think there is a lot of small checks, small fundraisers that were happening. Now investors expect you to actually have developed quickly to a point where they are able to put a lot of money. We are in the process of closing maybe our third round of funding. The third round of funding, when we went out into the market, some of the investors refused to speak to us because the ask from our side was too small. They said it doesn't merit my actually spending time on you now, because I'll invest say $1 million or $2 million, but even if you double that in 2 years, or even if you triple that in 2 years, it's only 2 million gain for me. I can't kind of survive with that small and improvement in my return. I need to invest 10 million and get maybe 30 million out in 2 years. So people's return metrics have changed, and that's why the stages and the size of investment that you are able to raise at stages is a dynamic one. Especially post-COVID, things have accelerated even more. Many people are saying, my previous employer McKinsey has come up with reports that what would have taken 10 years to evolve has happened in 15 months. So I think that evolution has meant that startups have been able to grow much faster than they imagined, and therefore raise much more capital than they would have otherwise. So that, I think, is the thing. Government role is actually not to hinder the thing. Not enabling is not, I think, has already been done. If they get into this and try to do something, then it will be a problem.
So thanks for the fantastic response. Now talking about metrics, we looked into DCF for the valuation part, but we always hear about a lot of metrics. One could be the average revenue per user, the cost of acquisition, customer lifetime value. So as a startup, what are the three metrics which one should focus upon for the growth of the startup, and what are the three metrics from the investor perspective which actually matter the most?
So only one matrix is there here. Customer, nothing else. Not even revenue, please forget revenue. People are forgetting. Coin DCX doesn't have revenue, please understand. Cred doesn't have revenue. It is not revenue, it is customer. Whether people are willing to come and look into your platform has become very, very important, and why they need to use your platform. So customer is the king today, and how do you attract, it all depends. That is one of the key metrics, and all the metrics are revolving around that. You understood now? So again, there are two things you need to be observed. One is services, one is product. Both are seen differently. India has been predominantly a service industry, please understand. And again, all the unicorns you look at, except Nykaa, which is selling products, or DTC is the today new word. But it is service has been our key motto, which we are trying to deliver even today. We are not a product-driven company. And if you look at Freshworks CEO or Zoho CEO, they both are saying we wanted to showcase to the world, we wanted to bring a product which can be used across the world. Yeah. They have very few people who are doing it to that, but service has been our motto. So, based on customer requirement, all your metrics revolve around either lifetime value or customer acquisition, revenue per customer, bill rate, all are revolving around that actually. Unless because I see life sciences and pharma completely differently. They don't follow the regular consumer behavior at all. For them, it is not consumer; it is human body.
That's true, but I think while for us it matters as to what we do in terms of patient outcomes and so on and so forth. The key thing, as has been said, is finding a fit between what the market wants and what we are providing. And the fit is only the evidence of fit is customers coming and staying with you and coming back to you again and again and again. If we are able to establish that, you can spin any story around it to say what your valuation should be and how much you kind of are worth at any point in time. In fact, the DCF valuation method and all of those methods I have learned in textbooks. I have a good grasp of it, but valuation is not done through DCF model. Valuation is done by what the promoter is asking as the valuation and what the investor is willing to give. Once we agree that, we justify it with DCF valuation model or any other internationally acceptable model for the tax authorities not to tax our premium.
Correct.
But the actual DCF does not drive the discussion on what the valuation is. The discussion on valuation is driven by how much the customers love what you are providing, and are they coming again and again, and are more people coming to you without a lot of effort.
Okay. So not talking about the product market fit, you said that should be the highest priority. Isn't it different for startups which got funded or which did not get funded? Because fundamentally, if you look at it, we're essentially talking about profitability and scalability. More numbers, it's a scalable game. But for smaller startups which are yet to raise funds, even for a pre-seed round, shouldn't it be different?
I agree. I think there is a time if you are in the seed round where you don't have a product that the customer can even use or a service that is out there, and at that time, primarily, I think for valuation, the track record of the promoters, the power of the idea, the size of the market that they're going to go after, the problem they're solving actually influence the valuation. And I think if you have a good pedigree, if you are going after a big market and the pain points there are worth solving for, you'll be able to get, and there are benchmarks generally on what valuation will be given there. But once you have launched your product or this thing, if you don't have a fit and you don't have customer evidence, then it will be very hard to fund your business through third-party capital. You can always bootstrap it and you can believe in it, but you can't get conviction of third parties and them putting money in you. And that, I think, goes to why 80,000 boils down to 600 or 300 in terms of Series C and above.
Yeah, generally, see your question. What we generally look at somebody today have a product and the promoters don't have relevant experience.
Yes.
One of our criteria of selecting a startup. The valuation was previously fixed at $500,000. Today we are fixing at $1 million. Please understand. That is what people are looking at. And somebody who has already staged across that MVP and they got some customer acceptance. At one time we were used to look at 10 crores, that is 1.5. Today it has gone to $3.5 million.
Okay, got it.
Because the fund level has gone.
So the default valuation has gone to
Understand one thing. None of the external investors want substantial share in the company. What is substantial share? Somebody holds more than 20%. For example, today your need is $2 million. Technically, I look at $8 million pre-money and $2 million will come 20%. Certain category like Tier 1 VCs like Tiger Global, Sequoia, which you are hearing, SoftBank, they are willing to take substantial shareholding. They are willing to look at 26 to 33% of the company. Otherwise, most of the networks, most of the VCs don't want to get into substantial shareholding in the company because I don't know, there are a lot of obligations are there, being a substantial shareholder of the captive.
So it's more from the legal side than the economic side. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it, no?
Yeah.
So valuation is an art. How do you value, how do you get in, what is your fund requirement? Has a lot of metrics, and every day we are fighting on it.
I'm speaking about the legal documentation, if I have to simplify. What are the top 3 rights and obligations which has to be incorporated into every agreement?
From an investor or a
Yeah,
startup?
investor's perspective.
Investor's perspective, I would say, especially the transfer restrictions, because you want to lock in the promoter within the company for a certain time period at least, that commitment has to be there. So those transfer restrictions, it's very important that you draft very well and then, you put there. The other one, of course, is all the decision making, the reserved matters. If you're an investor, you need to have certain visibility and control in terms of how the decisions are made. You may have a board seat, but you may not have the control of the board. Therefore, it is important that the money is used properly for what they've raised the investment for, and it is not meant to clear off the debts or promoter salaries. Quite a few aspects where if you don't have proper checks and balances, financial controls, the investment can get frittered away. Money, we've seen many instances where a lot of money has gone in, but there was a price because the investors faced quite a bit of loss. They had to write off the investments, mainly because the financial controls were not properly in place. So that is very critical. This thing, and then the exits. You really want to. You're putting in money because you're looking at an upside. You want to get exit. You're not here for a lifelong lifestyle kind of business, or you're not here to. That happens in biotech and pharma, and where R&D is heavy, the exits are not that quick. But these are the other kind of companies where exits are 3 to 5 years is generally what people look for. So those exit rights also you need to have proper negotiated ones and timelines, so that if that doesn't happen, then you don't want to be stuck in the company for long. So those I would say are the three elements.
I mean, if I have to flip that question, because investors are always powerful than the founders, any given scenario, probably 10x. Now, what are the 3 things which a founder who is not completely aware of the legal risk should definitely take care of before getting a patient?
Okay. So the promoter side, what we generally see is they have concerns on personal liability, because they are doing business, they are aware, and they want the investors to be aware that there are business risks involved. Okay, so it is not a guarantee of a return on the investment that they are taking. That is something they want to be very clear. They don't want any, especially indemnity clauses get highly negotiated, and from the promoter side, the key concern is I don't want any personal liability. I don't want investors to come and take away my house or my properties, because that is not what I'm putting into the business. Let them take the business risk. So that gets highly negotiated. And then the other one is having the operative control, operational freedom, because they want to run the business in the way they have the vision, and you don't want it to be too much of obstacles from the investor side. So that also gets highly negotiated from the reserve matters. And many transfer restrictions, promoters also, they see most promoters don't have other businesses. This is their only business that they're running. They have put in their blood and sweat into this, sweat and blood, and then entire family, entire focus is on the startup. So they want some liquidity. Sometimes, they may, in as much as everybody gets an exit at the same time, 5 years, maybe too long a period for a promoter unless they're really deep pocketed. So they would like some liquidity in terms of maybe 5%, 7% they want to be selling away if they need a liquidity. So those are things we have seen. And salaries, yes, they're willing to take some cut. But for the performance also, certain recognition in terms of, some kind of management incentive, stocks, some kind of equity incentive is also people look for. Okay?
Yeah, Shashi would be better.
Yeah, I think what Sundari mentioned about the whole fact about keeping personal liability separate is a very, very important thing. In fact, the thing about the legal aspects of the rights is that there is no standard document in the market. Everybody is negotiating from scratch, and every promoter goes through this experience of, oh my God, I have to suddenly grapple with things that I've never had to think about. Tag along, drag along. Some of those are hard to get your head around in the first instance. So I think the Since there's no standard document, there's no guidelines. This is a discussion between the promoter and the investor, who's heavily armed with good lawyers and so on and so forth on their side. And personal liability is the one that you have to absolutely draw the line on. For example, in one of the rounds, the first document that was drafted said that if something were to happen and there's a loss caused, I have to indemnify the investors to the extent of them being able to claw back all my salary, take all my shares in the company, and also if there's something on my personal assets, some extent of the personal assets also being put on the table for them to recover their losses. That is no. Salary once given is mine. You can't kind of touch it. My personal property, which I haven't put into the company, you can't touch. So I think that is a very strong line to draw. And many times promoters are not aware and they don't actually draw a line on this and later pay the price for having messed up on this particular thing. The other big thing is losing control. And there is this whole investors usually negotiate you being able to be dismissed from the company for a cause. And those are very nebulously defined. You have to ensure that the cause is a legally sustainable reason on which the investor can take action. Otherwise, they can call anything a cause. The color of the sky changed to black, that's a cause for you to be dismissed. That cannot happen. So from our perspective, that's where we spend a lot of time. I know from an investor perspective, they might hate this.
One thing which I always say, irrespective, because me and Sundari, I always fight with her on certain things. Irrespective of you signing hundreds of documents,
Yes.
it doesn't have any value unless you are successful.
Correct.
For me, it is very critical that your success is my success. We don't want to hinder any of my startup to slog because of the legal issues. Where our issue comes in, if today anyway, 99% of the startups are doing very fair deal. There is no question of, unlike the previous promoters, taking out money, buying big cars and other things. It's not there. At least we are okay. They're even buying, as long as your business is. But if we found something fraud has happened with my money,
Correct.
then only we wanted to get very seriously onto this aspect. Otherwise, irrespective, even in your bank loan, you will sign around hundreds of documents. You will write everything from Tom, Dick and Harry. Unless you are going wrong, then only it has some sense. Otherwise, no sense for me. Even for investor agreements, whatever we keep the clauses, at the end of the day, on your success story, nothing will hold good. Today, Zomato founder has less than 10% stake. Still, he is the founder, and none of the investors are backing you out, right? So it is not a botheration for me. Even your ultimate lakshya is to reach the defined goal in your life. Other things are not a botheration at all. So I feel not to consider too much, but yes, from the legal standpoint of view, there are one or two instances which we need to take care. If that can be taken care, I am fine with it actually. For me, it is not a botheration here from the investment point of view. You want to come and say, if I am a startup founder today, I will say, no botheration, because I know what I am going to do at the end of the day.
Just one comment on that. So as we represent both the investors and the companies many times, from the investor side, we've also had some, especially foreign investors, making some mistakes in terms of the promoter selection. Sometimes there have been some instances of criminal behavior in terms of financial fraud and company shutdown. The promoters were arrested. So some of the investors have become cognizant that maybe a little bit of background check is also important. Credibility and those credentials are excellent, but also sometimes the background check may help to weed out something, especially when they are not aware of the local and domestic issues. So that's something to keep in mind.
So can we expect something like DIN for founder identification number in the future if this is a trend picking up?
DIN is okay, but
No, for
I think it's
startups.
more a soft inquiry or diligence is what I'm talking about. DIN, of course, what
No.
gets reported.
Today data is available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Signalex company which we
Yes.
invested in, 2-3 other companies,
Yeah.
just put your name. You will get entire information in all high courts, all district
Yeah.
courts, whatever criminal cases are there. Now they are trying to bring police department into picture. Whatever all other officials can be uploaded and you can get them.
Okay.
And surprisingly, Sundri, most of the bridegrooms are also checking on Signalex to check what is the background of their family.
So it's getting a larger database coverage.
Good customer fit.
So now I want to add another dimension. So far we have been obsessed with only investors and founders. Now the important dimension is stakeholders. To specifically quote the Zomato example. Now one dimension of looking at it is the early investors got a chunk of the IPO money. Now from the, I would say, shareholder perspective, even in the Paytm and it's the lower circuit, we have very, very little information to in publicly available information to when it comes to IPO investing, and I don't think the laws are as stringent as for regular listed companies in terms of IPOs when they're coming out to the public. So what are your thoughts on this? A lot of companies getting into IPOs and people investing.
There is tremendous pressure on the government to recognize startups to get into IPO because a lot of investment. Today, if you look into the metrics, before China was being locked down, today most of the investment, 83% of our investment in India is coming through US only. No other countries there. And the US government is putting pressure how to unlock the money which has gone in, because they need to get the money out. At certain level, it is not easy somebody to buy somebody else until unless it is an M&A activity.
Okay.
So for them, the ultimate objective is to come into IPO market and unlock it. And surprisingly, I always feel Zomato is the first company we came into the market. You know, one of the comment by RPG, because I worked over there, he said, I'll also create a company with 3,000 crores loss. Can you value my company at 1 lakh crores? That's a comment which was there. But they need to unlock value. The unlocking value will happen only through IPO market. And that has to be opened up. They opened up. Now all the companies are lining up, which has been there for 7-8 years or 9 years on their investments. And technical, please understand, because Nayan is there, Madam is there. If you're joining as an LP in the VC community, venture capital, they have an obligation to give the money back in a span of 7 to 10 years. If they don't close it, the fund manager will be in a big trouble. He will not be able to raise another round of funding, its survival will not be there for them. So for exits, they need this opening because US opened up with the Uber and other people which came into the market, SpaceX, other thing. They had a pressure now. So government streamlined because previously SEBI used to think until unless you are profitable, DCF valuation is there. I think DCF will change now. They are under pressure. But all the people are sitting is 50 or 60 years plus, they don't understand new age valuations, which are coming into the market. Still, there is trying to come what generally they have wanted to do. And my wife is also there in Registered Values Organization, which is representing the government. They are asking what are the new age methodologies which are going to come. I said, you have chosen a wrong people there. Either a CA guy or ICM guy can't do anything. The startup VC funds know exactly what valuations will work for them. I was only joking with my wife, do you understand what startup valuations look like today? It's completely changing the metrics. So that's change they are trying to do. As of now, still they are, but DCF is still continuing. So IPS is a good thing. And that created one good aspect is now investments in startup ground because they know I am getting an exit. Previously we don't know whether I will go for an IPO or not. People were struggling. Now people know the ultimate objective is they will go for an IPO, they will get an exit. They are good. And another aspect, Nayan also commented. Previously to reach to a unicorn level it was 7 to 10 years, Flipkart. Today to reach a unicorn level it is only 3 years. Tomorrow I don't know, it may be 15 months. There are 2 startups which have created unicorn within 15 months, 15 to 18 months. That's the speed at which people are going today because of the change in market. So it's good to have, otherwise all the investors will struggle if IPO is not.
No, this is sorted from the investor's perspective, but are the checks and balances completely sorted, especially from the public point of view?
You look into SEBI guidelines. Recently, they also issued guidelines after looking into Zomato, Paytm, and
Yeah.
Nykaa. Because Nykaa, after listed, they reported 95% losses. The first quarter results. SEBI got completely bombarded. And second thing, as Zomato said, they have not given objectives of fundraising, general objectives. Suddenly, they announced
Acquisition.
1,000 crores of fund for inorganic acquisition.
Yes.
They were surprised. That's why immediately they issued the guidelines because they can't enforce. Somebody already filed DRHP, they said these are applicable from 1st April 2022. They are doing, they know public case should not go for a toss. A lot of people are investing because of FOMO, fear of missing out.
So now this brings us to the bigger discussion. Now, if you look at somebody like Baidu's, who are consciously avoiding IPO, they have raised 2 lakh crores. So 2 lakh crore is sitting in the ecosystem with not much regulations. So what is happening there? So should government put a cap over there in terms of regulating it?
See, I don't understand. It is a commercial transaction, it's a business, an investor putting in money. Why you want government regulations on it? You would love to do that?
No, suddenly one fine day when they want to take the IPO route.
No, you ask Sundari madam, she says, when you are investing in equity, it is a high risk class. It may go up, it may go down, or it may become zero. Knowingly only people are
Yeah.
entering, no? That's why all the wealth managers will say how much percentage of your wealth you can take a high risk class. People need to follow. I see in the today market, for me, especially people are coming and saying, I will put 2 crores, 3 crores into startup. I said, do you understand startup investment?
Yes.
And one of the clear point I am saying, are you willing to come to lose money,
Yeah.
not to win money?
Win money.
In the process, because we are fostering entrepreneurship, if some of them are successful, you will make money. But I think losing money, people get aggrieved, they create lot of nuisance value. We said, are we mature or not mature in looking into this investment? It is only euphoria, which I see in the market. Unless you have any views.
I have no views. I'm not a public market investor. I'm stick to mutual funds and other managed funds.
You are a safe bet.
That's coming from McKinsey, we say that.
Yeah, it was so cumbersome to invest. We had so many disclosures, so we have all stuck to funds.
We are the wiser investors.
There's actually a survey which is released quite recently. 85% of the fund managers in USA do not invest their personal money in the funds they manage. And now the question is on behalf of the guests today. Most of them are chartered accountants or from the financial profession. I'm a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and I have a startup, so my perspective is different. Most of them are chartered accountants in practice, and they don't have their own startups. So where do they fit into the game? Because from a legal perspective, yes, we got some clarity. As a chartered accountant in practice, so how can they enter this game of chartered ecosystem?
He is a chartered accountant plus knows the other.
See, one good thing has happened here. I think more chartered accountants are coming in, and I always feel we are blessed in disguise to have startups now.
Yeah.
In Hyderabad itself, we are seeing more startups are getting registered, and they are looking at chartered accountants on 3-4 areas. One is that they want to take care of all the compliances they wanted to file. Again, I see in that stuck between chartered accountant and startup is they are not paying, we are not delivering. She is seeing in CPA, conditions precedent. The second thing is they want some guidance on the financial maths. They are also confused. What are the legal regulations we need to handle and what are the... I always feel, because I also, when I did CA until I joined Hyderabad, I am also confused, please be aware. When we did our Contract Act, business laws, most of them would remember, they play a bigger role in our day-to-day life when you are dealing with the startup ecosystem. So we should become semi-lawyer by ourselves. That is the need, because most of the founders are asking, sir, I am getting some funding, that fellow is asking something. Most of them don't know. Sir, paisa leke aajo, we will put it. So whether you need to issue CCPS, you need to issue CCD, we need to issue equity share, you need to issue convertible share, or you need to bring it as unsecured loan. People are not able to guide many startups, they are struggling today. And ultimately that investor and he doesn't have idea what they are trying to do. I feel chartered accountants can bridge this gap very well because the ecosystem is growing. And other side, as we know, tax audit has been moved to 10 crores, now most of them has gone, GST audit is gone. Now the government is saying we will remove even the of companies. Please understand more what I heard from our central council members, both from, because my father-in-law is an ICW institute in central council. Modi called income tax officials CBDT. Tell me, after chartered accountants doing the tax audit, how much revenue we got additionally? It is not in the peanut. Then I said, why I need this guys, remove him. They said, because chartered accountants, when they are doing tax audit, they are representing the income tax department, deemed representatives as assessing officers, which we are not doing the job. I said, I don't need them today. And GST also, because a lot of people slogged on GST and system is dying. He said, where is the value chartered accountants are bringing? Let them remove. They also did. Now for audits, he is saying, why this compliance cost to startups to pay 20,000, 30,000 for fees and fighting? Let me remove it. He also removed. For opening a startup, you don't need to pay a single rupee today, up to 10 lakhs. Correct? Authorized capital in ROC. So he is removing all the hurdles using technology. And I feel income tax department is the best place to see the IT. Nirmala Sitharaman makes in her comment, artificial intelligence, data analytics, you would have seen her words, right? And data mining, they are doing extremely well today. They know where Ratnagiri is sitting today, what is his net. Today they are following AIS. You've seen AIS in income tax portals?
Yes.
They got all the information,
Yes.
whatever is needed. And they're bringing entire information about person. I was telling a lot of people to my clients, if you have 10 properties and you're declaring only one property, remaining 9 properties will come. And luckily she did one thing, she removed assessment to 3 years only instead of 8 years. Otherwise, if she has opened up Pandora, if the property has been purchased in 2010, she will ask to get the deemed rental income on that actually, to pay with penalty and interest. So the data for government is humongous today. So we have a larger role to play to make startups understand what need to be done from the accounting point of view, what need to be done from instrument filing point of view. Even for legal and investors, we want ROC compliances to be up to date. And most of them are dependent on chartered accountants. And we are losing that opportunity. Now company secretaries have gone really big. You would have seen that action. So that's why we have a bigger role to play. And I think I was telling our CA Institute also, we need to do a lot more sessions what really happens on the background. So they are aware, they can help many of the buddy chartered accountants and young people who are running with it. When the chartered accountants, you are in startup now, you don't look into all this aspect. Your CA is gone. Out of your mind, technically. So there is a bigger role for us, definitely bigger role. And M&As are going to happen. A lot of things are going to happen on that side.
So I just have one advice for the audience. Generally what we are seeing is where startup founders or in general founders require help from chartered accountants is valuation. You know what that negotiation of the valuation, right? Promoters, I'm not talking about giving a valuation certificate. Registered valuers, merchant bankers, that is a different kind of that may be more for regulatory compliance, you follow certain methodology. But irrespective of that, what Mr. Shashi was addressing is how does a promoter fix the value for that company, how does he figure that out, and how much to raise, how much to dilute, okay, that is an art, as Mr. Shashi mentioned, but that is something where most founders are not, they go for peer advice or they go into their groups, in the industry, what is happening and all of that, but they're not fully aware. That is where I think chartered accountants with your experience and reading the market and depending on the company, industry and all of that, you could help them. That's more like a management consultancy advice, right? Many people look for that. They ask for that. So the projections, basically the forecast projections, how to raise the money. The other aspect where we see many people asking for reference is for IP valuation. Right? There is intellectual property, that is very valuable, and it also, everybody knows that can actually fetch quite a bit, either in the IPO or an M&A or in terms of raising investment, but they're not able to put proper value in terms of the IP. That is where even chartered accountants can, and many people argue if you can specialize in IP valuation, there's a huge market. That's my advice. These are the two areas where people come. Any advice on that, Shashi?
No, I think from a promoter perspective, the CA or my auditor is a very important advisor for me right from the day zero. Because in the first board meeting itself, you have to appoint a statutory advisor, a statutory auditor, and that journey and that relationship begins early. And I think there's a lot that has been said that your old world jobs are going away. Old world projects or old world ways are going away. And startups are dealing with issues that large companies used to deal with in the past. Foreign investment, for example. People never had that issue in the past. Now, if I'm going to repatriate, what is the tax to be collected at source? All these issues are becoming much more relevant and much more commonplace than they were. IP valuation, all of these things are becoming much more commonplace, and I think there's a need for the CA profession to kind of really embrace those. Your profession is moving to a technology-based profession with data analytics actually underpinning the discovery of insights and so on and so forth. So you'll also have to functionally get better at big data, at all the AI, ML and other things, because that's the future of your profession.
No, I think one other area, just to add on, of course, all of this is there, where actually, I've seen a lot of chartered accountants playing a very, very key role, is that from an investor perspective, once the investment is done, helping them on the whole life cycle, right from end to end, both from a promoter side and investor side is there. Now, what happens after the money goes in? Now, typically, startups do not have that bandwidth, for them to monitor the progress. So, typically, what we are also seeing is there is a lot of demand for chartered accountants or professionals to come in to help monitor what is happening. Because see, as an investor, you may not be, if you are a big angel network, etc., you may not be personally so much focused on each and every investment that you do. But what happens is if there is a level playing field there, where you get reports out of as to how it is performing, broadly the MIS reports, or just understanding where it is progressing or it is moving as desired, then I think that's another place where there is a lot of demand that's coming up generally, because the investors are investing. After that, it's more of, it goes on a backseat for them, because they are waiting for the, depending on the investor, they are waiting for the exit, or they are involved in operations. But monitoring the financial aspects around it is something that is also generally picking up quite a bit.
So is there a platform where the existing CAs can reach out? So how do they reach out to a particular startup? Where do they meet?
There is no platform. As we used to get clients, the same thing is happening today. There is no platform today for that until an institute comes with some directive. That's only a thing which
we have set up a committee on MSME startups in just a month. So they also want to replicate the T-Hub model, where for chartered accountants who have started their own startups, they are trying to facilitate an incubation center and all. So I think that's moving in that direction.
Yeah, that's totally good. Any other point?
Yeah, a specific question to you, sir. Recently, I met an IRS officer. He's been 20 years into service. Now, after the HCS event, he's had 2 things. All other professions have gone on. The most powerful tribe of people are investors. The second powerful are judiciary. So judiciary, that's a separate step. Now, is investor, becoming an investor, can it be looked into as a profession? Or should you have a lot of money, or can you become a professional investor even without having a lot of money also?
No, you need to have money to be an investor.
You can be a general partner with no money.
No. I would say in the role of a fund manager who are representing investments, because my friend, he's a chartered accountant now, he's handling a fund of 10 crore. So in that line, it's not very clear.
No, people need to perceive the risk. A lot of risk is involved when you're dealing with other people's money. I still remember Kamath, because I worked in ICICI Bank. Kamath clearly told the money which is coming in bank is public money.
Yeah.
We are giving that money as loans to the people who are looking at MSMEs or SMEs. And becoming an NPA, see, if I give 100 crores loan, my interest, you see in SDFC, ICICI, whatever, the net interest margin is 2%. Between fixed deposit, fixed expenditure and whatever, for 2%, that is 2 crores in a year, it It becomes an NPA, entire 100 crores it goes for a write-off, correct, to earn their 2 crores. So we need to be 100% sure how the money goes into the person or whether we can repay back that money. That's why the cash flow and other things used to play a bigger role. Here also in the startup ecosystem, though I say one of the things in investing in startup is losing money, but I also be 100% cautious where I am entering and how I am entering, who is the founder, whether he has an idea. As I said, we do a lot of monitoring. Every investor, they have a team which monitors the progress of the startup. They don't want to deviate. We look at every quarter. That's why a lot of people started portfolio, but they are not able to succeed. Because we understand our money, what we get. But to be an investor, you need to have money, you need to invest, you need to undergo that pain of losing money or making money. It all depends on.
To simplify the question, what kind of people would Tiger Global or SoftBank would hire? Would chartered accountant, CMA?
No. They need Stanford, Harvard, ISBs. Don't ask for chartered accountant. Chartered accountant who is an IIM, they are there. Because he's in McKinsey, he knows. They don't recruit. Until unless you are an all India rank holder in chartered accountant, they will be selected. That's what I said. Otherwise, normal people, no chance today.
Since the width and range of investor group is increasing, still you would get a.
Even today, most of them are ISBs and IIMs are ruling the rules.
Yes.
Not chartered. So chartered accountant or part of IIM Ahmedabad or part of IIM Bangalore or part of IIM Kolkata, they are ruling the rules in the funding space because that needs a different horizon and a link what they are looking at. I am here only by chance. Please don't understand. Otherwise, IIM Bangalore is an executive general management program I did because I will tell you, she knows. I funded one of the person during my days in ICICI Bank. He remembered me and brought me back here. Saying, I said, a dead person can you manage an equity? Ratnagi, you try, so I am here.
Dead person.
Because I was funding when ICICI Bank, I used to give loans, and most of
Perspective is different.
the people are worried when I was funding, I used to grill them, and then only I used to fund and see no single NPA during my 5 years tenure in ICICI Bank. So that's why he said, Ratnagi, you are a better person to come here. But I said, the death rate is much higher in startups. People need to understand. That's why I put that numbers. People will understand it is not so easy to look into startup ecosystem.
But in fact, truth be said,
Most Indian banks took a startup risk in the past. All the debt was actually equity in the past. Only after regulations have changed, debt has become debt and equity has come in as a different class. I think many of the promoters of the YOR used to take debt and never pay back.
No, even today, sir, I will personally tell the PSU banks, people are, to say, I shouldn't quote publicly, people are trying to take certain under the table occurrences and they are releasing the debts. That is resulting into NPL. Even Chanda Kochar, who is my boss as an MD, she also got into quid pro quo, which we never imagined. She being such a great lady and powerful lady, why she got into that mess, technically, if you ask. So all these things are there, which is resulting back as well. But in startup ecosystem, it is not that case. That's what I am saying. People are good. Inexperienced. 90% of startups are first generation entrepreneurs. They have never seen entrepreneurship journey there. How many will understand HR policies? How many will understand leadership skills in managing people under them? Large people. Why many startups are failing? They don't have proper leadership. How to delegate? They don't know. They do top to door everything. They feel we are doing everything. It is not the requirement. I always say, delegate your work and you play golf and strategize to grow the company. It is not that you go and lift everything after taking 100 employees under you. What is the reason to do that, right? Leadership skills is not there, HR policies, management of finance, lot of people are lacking on that. People are more obsessed about their product or a service what they are doing. They are not worried about other angles which are affecting them very heavily. That is the reason the losses are there. It is not because of any fraudulent activity. Their experiences has been bad. As Madam and we see, people don't understand legal documents what they are saying. And suddenly something crops up, so you will have a negative. Correct? No. So I personally feel today startups are really genuine. Like one of the classic example, when bounce scooters have came into market aggressively, people were, he said take the scooter and go anywhere and drop anywhere. People asked, whether people will take and money. But really that has not happened. They said now people are conscious. You got it now? People are conscious. They don't want to take money just it is, even if it is lying here, people don't want to take. So that's a complete societal change has come today. That's a positive thing. Still banks are having interest, it's a different story altogether. But startup world, I personally feel Sundari and rest of the people, amazing people. It's their inexperience only, they are losing money, they are dying the companies. It is not of their fault, please understand. It's their inexperience. That's why as an angel community, I always say, identify 2 or 3 larger weaknesses. Is it finance? Is it marketing? A lot of people don't know how to do sales. A lot of people don't know what technology you need to use. That's why I'm asking my angel to go and sit in their company as an advisor, advise him what needs to be done, who is the right CTO or who is the right CFO, who is the right chief marketing officer who need to come and manage that company to make it successful. They don't know. Is Nayan is a right CFO? I don't know what company he can drive as a CFO, how he sees the vision. That's where we are saying our angels, your experience of driving an entrepreneurship is very important to identify that weakness and help them to grow. Otherwise, the successes will go for really tossed. Please don't, looking into loss rates, don't get afraid. Looking into debt side is not enough. It's an experience and try to take maximum help wherever it is coming. Madam always says, don't do my legal work. That's true. Don't look my finance work. People feel I will do a jack of all. No. If that is her job, let her do. If she has some job, let us do. Expect us to deliver. Because I am paying money, please deliver the work for me. As a startup founders, I always say, don't get into that job. Understand. You need to understand. But let them do the job. You will get the best of the best in startup ecosystem. I think people are saying, I know legal, I know financing, I will file secretariat, I will also do marketing, I will also do. Not everybody is specialized in that area. I don't understand how people said, half knowledge is more danger than no knowledge. Today that is what is happening.
So one final question from my end. So apart from the numbers and apart from the valuation, what are the 3 things which an investor would look into a startup before investing, and 3 things they would look into the founder specifically?
No. Today, most of the investment from angel networks or VC network is only founder.
Only directly to the founder.
It is founder execution capability. That's only a thing. And we look at whether founder is aggressive, whether it is conservative or is moderate. We look into that. If he is more aggressive, we are willing to invest. Secondly, even the founder is aggressive, but he is heavyweight, highly egoistic. People are avoiding. Because you are no listener to anybody.
Right.
Your chance of failure is very high. And we don't want founder to be submissive also. Sir, please tell, sir, please tell. We're also worried about that. There is a right balance and understanding founder very well. And wherever we invested on founder, we have been more successful.
Okay.
It is not business idea.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is assessing business idea, everybody is assessing what need to be done. The success is on the founder, nothing else. Don't look at what founder need to carry, what nothing else here. Ultimately is the person. Today you see Microsoft, you see Google, you see even Reliance today, Mukesh Ambani, how he is driving. It is a person and a founder, his vision is driving.
Yes.
And I personally feel professionally run an organization, success is very less.
Yeah.
Whether you accept or reject. People say professional. We need a founder who takes professional help in driving his company is very important. Understood? That is the reality of the world. That's why we look at founder, what is his vision, how aggressive is there in his approach, we are willing to do. Even if you don't know sales, take a person in sales, grow. If you don't know marketing, appoint the right guy. We are willing to fund. Even other day in one of the case we said, even if you are paying 1 crore salary for a CTO or 2 crore salary for a sales guy, we said please go and fund that guy. Get your sales done. We are not bothered. We see many founders, sir, मेरे को 10 lakhs ही नहीं मिल रहा है, उसको 1 crore क्यों pay करना है? That itself is a big failure.
Yes.
Because you have an equity which is valued some crores, correct? He is only coming for a salary here, he is not coming for equity here. Then why ESOPs? One of the point you put it ESOPs. Startup doesn't have funds to fund this right talent. Somebody is looking for 2 lakh salary, 3 lakh salary. Today I can't afford it. Baba, please join with me. I will pay you 50,000 to run your family. The rest of your money which I need to pay you, I will give you by way of ESOP, which is a wealth in future. Today, we don't like companies which are looking for running income. Example, BB Mohan Reddy from Science Labs. My company is valued around 11,000 crores today. Please look into stock market. It is less than $1.5 billion. And he funded a companies which are valued $10 to $15 billion valuation. And they are not doing revenue what Science is doing. Even Suresh Babu from Ramanagari Studios, he said, my property is worth 10,000 or 20,000 crores, it doesn't matter. I am not valued in wealth. But there are startups which are valued in, as you said, unicorns, decathlons. They are growing. The value today is in stocks and wealth which is going into stock market. That's where startups are recognized. That's where people are making money. We changed completely from running income to the wealth income. The change has come very frequent. And that's why they are investing. They are trying to create wealth through successful founders who are coming from this world.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
don't worry what founders need, what other things. Investors are looking at founders and investing.
Good. So we'll take a few questions from the audience. Any specific questions from the audience?
I am Naveen, a member of Mumbai Angels. Like one of the startup approached me for funding. It's an asset-light model, so they need only 20 lakhs for their investment. But we need, want to approach an angel. So should we just increase the zeros for approaching them, or is there any other criteria?
I think you should not make your investment plan or your investment ask based on which investor you are wanting to get on board. As I said, in our current round, there were several investors who told us they will invest only if we need more money than what we are able to absorb right now. I think your investment plan should be based on what your company can absorb. And if it's too small for any particular investors, there will be other investors who will come in at that time, and maybe you can use that funding.
And second question, as a startup promoter, we keep all our money, even our properties, but VCs or angels invest into our companies and we don't get anything. So is there any way that promoter gets that money? Can we book salary from the beginning, and is there any way that can we?
You are a Mumbai Angels member or you got invested through Mumbai Angels?
No, we are in members.
Members, okay.
Yeah,
So
but
you
and my brother is also.
okay.
No, you obviously will always get a salary.
No, he is an investor. Putting
Okay.
in money into the company.
Right.
I'm asking about few doubts. My brother is having a startup. It's an asset-light model. He told me no one is ready to invest in him. I told him we are asking for very less investment. That may be the case. No one is approaching.
He need guidance. Asset-light model, which sector, which business, which problem statement he is trying to address, need to assess. Let us discuss offline if something is there to understand what he is trying to do. And salary, we don't expect founder to draw salary until unless he raises funds. Because he is putting his money and sweat into the startup for its growth. You will take your money and you will take back your money by way of salary. Nobody knows what is that you are trying to do at the end of the day. Correct? It is your sweat. Sweat is becoming your wealth.
Any more questions from the audience? Or else we'll try to.
Sir, would the capital intensive projects work successfully? Like, so one of my clients, he's not yet started the operation. He has just idea. Like he has invested much of his knowledge in analysis of data and like all the project report has done. So the project will need 21 crores of funding, but he's not yet seen it. It's just an idea level. Okay.
It is an EV or a space tech. Yes. If any other startup or any other startup, it is doubtful that kind of funding is needed.
It's into grocery space.
Grocery space, 21 crores, forget. Please don't do that startup at all.
This is summary evaluation.
He's ready to bring like 2 crores of his own money. Actually.
Doesn't matter. You don't get into grocery. Forget it.
No, I think the overall in the startup ecosystem, one of the highly valued thing is about scalability. And if you need large chunks of capital and large gestation period for that capital, then that is suitable for bank funding, not for startup funding. The VCs won't come into that kind of model.
But like recently we have seen Zepto getting funded very huge. Like,
So you will get, I'm saying it is based not on a capital investment plan. It is based on showing fast scalability and steep revenue and customer additions.
Yeah, one final point because we need to close. See the valuation, there is a question on valuation by somebody. I will tell you the startup space has 5 types of valuation. At initial stage, the funding will happen on the founders and the founding team. When you are getting into revenue, it is all revenue multiples. For example, Licious, which is a B2C company, purely B2C, there is no B2B, they have been valued 8 times of their revenue. Every stage of their funding is 8 times of their revenue. Very simple, please understand, valuation. Or somebody is in B2B and B2C, they have been valued 4 times of their revenue. Again, IT tech companies which are SaaS, they are valued 20 to 30 times of their revenue. Please understand, technology has been valued. Till what time revenue will play a role? It is up to Series B, which you are hearing in the market. After Series B, it is the gross margin which is going to make a big difference. They are looking at purely gross margin. There the gross margin multiples are coming. Series B, Series C, Series D, Series C, Series F is what they are going ahead to that level. Today market is also agreeing, I will look at revenue and gross margin as a base to do an IPO. Otherwise, traditional companies are looking at EBITDA multiples at the time of PE investment funding, and when you are going to IPO market, it is price equity multiples, EPS, what we look at. So that analogy has been changing into this analogy, revenue and gross margin. Ultimately, all these companies need to move into EBITDA, and EBITDA should move into EPS. That game need to continue in terms of that. So it is all revenue multiple. DCF is only for the purpose, government has not changed the regulation. They are still following DCF. It is revenue. How do you get revenue multiples? A lot of people will have a question. At what valuation company need to be valued? I think we as a CA community or somebody need to come with certain metrics, as you said, to publish in the newspaper what kind of multiples are going on. Today that maths is only known to the VCs and angel networks and what multiples each of this particular company is going about. We have the data. We are not sharing with any third party today because they are keeping it as a secret, I think. So that's where we are. Please understand, all your startups are revenue multiples. Initial stage, it is founders and founder experience, nothing else. And one last thing, I'll give you an example. We've seen founders who are coming from college, less than 20, 21 years of age. And they don't have relevant experience. We are insisting them to get an advisors who understand their business. So when we are investing in that startup, we are looking at advisors who are advising in that particular segment. We have seen certain startups which are starting around 26 to 33. These people have undergone 2-3 years of work experience. They have seen, now they are passionate to get into the work experience. There we are looking for combination of people. Somebody handles product or service, somebody knows finance, somebody knows marketing. We want that combination. A lot of times I found 3 chartered accountants are starting a startup company, it doesn't make sense. Technically for investors, we want, okay, 1 chartered accountant, 1 marketing guy and 1 technology guy. We want that combination to be there. You need to choose your combination on that, please understand. And somebody is 33 to 45, okay? There you don't need any of this combination, even if it is a single founder and the founder is good, we are willing to invest. Because of their experience of running an organization and already seen a decade of their cycle in their life. Please understand when we look at founders. Above 45, we are skeptical. Somebody is trying to start a startup at 45. Why? You don't have aggression to grow. We have seen, Sundari, we have seen people have not shown that aggression of running like a risk appetite. You know, in investment world, when you are 25 to 35, you say 80% in equity, 20% in debt. Very few startups have done, but we don't know who is the diamond, and that is very difficult to find. So this is the closing remarks. Thank you.
So this has been one of the best startup insight session which I personally experienced, because I closely follow YC, I closely follow Shark Tank, but the problem is they're mostly US centric and they don't have any correlation with what happens in India. The last couple of hours has been fantastic, and I would like to thank each and every one of them. Now, as a token of respect for the time and thought, we would like to arrange a small token of appreciation from HCS side. So we'll start with Nayan. So Balakrishna, please hand over that to Nayan.